Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes. It's a Thursday, so I'm joined by JP Mason. Apologies if there's a wee bit of grainy inconsistency with my picture. An upload is just about to finish and we'll get back to normal. But as long as we can see JP clearly, that's what the fans want. JP Mason, how are you doing?
Steady on. Aye, good. Yeah, I nipped out for my breakfast there and bumped into a fan of the show. It's always one of those ones where someone turns around and starts looking at you up and down, and you're like, "Oh no, what's this? Is this going to be one of them giving it whatever?" Not that they've got much to give out to us at the moment, anyway. But music time, well, we'll see. But a guy, Danny, was just walking with his sister. And he said hello and like, oh, Acsom, aye. I was like, yeah. And I was like, is that okay? And he went, aye, of course, I watch it all the time. I was like, oh, thank God for that, because
Superb.
you're always concerned about the about who it's going to be. We're in a divided city after all, but really nice guy, and he's met Declan a couple of times as well, and he was telling me he used to play football himself and played against the late great Tommy Burns in
Really?
1973. Can I remember the cup? It was a Glasgow, maybe a Glasgow Fairs Youth Cup or something like that. But I played against Tommy, knew him to say hello to and all that as well, and said Tommy liked a scrap on the pitch. So there you go. I mean, you could always. I mean, the red hair. He was tenacious, but I think in his younger days he liked to put it about on the pitch. So that was a nice wee nugget to get. And what else did he tell you? He was telling me about some of the players from these parts, the parts of Mary Hill, Jim Duffy and Charlie Nick used to just stay along the road from me, which I didn't know. So there you go.
Charlie, Nick, and Jim Duffy. Good friends when they were coming through the ranks at Celtic. As I say, apologies if there's a wee bit grainy on my side. There is an upload happening in this studio, and hopefully it will finish soon. There's a comment in here. I'm going to bring it up straight away. Thanks everybody for getting involved. We love the comments. You get to know the names and some of the avatars and some of the faces. Paddy comes in every single day, so welcome back, Paddy Afternoon, PJD and JP. Hello from Plymouth, says Keith Oakton, and I hope you're well down there. Is there any truth, Keith, in the fact that Plymouth Argyle fans came to Dunfermline, went to watch Dunfermline with a banner which said PARS, Plymouth Argyle Rosyth supporters, and hence the club were christened the Pars? I don't know if that's true. I like it though. It's a decent story, JP. It's a decent story. We've got loads to talk about. Someone has said, love that top hanging up. It's the one behind you, JP. It is a grower. Definitely is. It does grow on you. I was saying that before it came on. See, when they do the reveals, I love it because it's a bit razzmatazz, it's a bit Hollywood. Back in the day, sometimes jerseys weren't revealed at all. But they do it the full hog now, big photo shoots, camera shots, all that kind of stuff. And I wasn't sure. I've got to say I was on the fence. I'd seen the criticism around the silver Adidas stripes, but when you see it on the park and when you see it hanging up behind you there, it looks so much better, JP. Is it a grower, or did you love it from the first moment you set your eyes on those green and white hoops?
Well, no, because I saw the leaked images before they were. I saw it on like a hanger. I don't know, a couple of months ago. It feels like, and I don't anything that's kind of. I mean, that's why it's released in a kind of Hollywood pizzazz style, is to entice you, is to make it look as good as it can, whether it's on a player or, you know, just how they present it. So if you see something just sort of limply hanging on a hanger in what appears to be some sort of cupboard, it's never, one angle, it's never going to look as good as it is when it's in an advert. So then, yeah, once I saw it on the players and then saw it in person, I really like it. Yeah, and I think the colour of green as well. I've not seen that colour of green for a while. I think this is the same, almost the same colour of green as the 2011 home top. Remember the one that had the kind of big collar, like a V-neck collar with it.
Yep.
It had been like, I guess, Lennon's first full season. I think it was that one. So it's the same sort of shade of green, and the green. I know this is getting extremely geeky, but the green of that sits it balances off quite nicely against the green of the pitch. And I know that sounds mental, but it just being at the game on Sunday, I saw it in a different light, and I think it looks really good.
Listen, Thursday's all about geekery. We talk about music. We talk about the shade of green on that Celtic jersey. The one you're talking about, which player reminds you of that jersey? Because I'm going to say something like Thomas Ronya or Mulgrew. He looked good in most jerseys, to be fair. I was up at the park. Must have been, the second time this season I've been at Celtic Park, JP. People are having fits over
dare
this.
you?
How very dare I? And I was talking to somebody up there. I was talking about kits, actually. And I says to them, it can't be that difficult when you've got guys like Matt O'Reilly and Jota in the building. You try to launch something, they could sell just about anything. However, we did have a wee chat about the third kit, which I think is going to be released Thursday of next week. It's obviously been revealed. Quick one, JP, because we love a wee chat about the jerseys. The music's coming up later on, ladies and gents. What's your thoughts on that third jersey? Because I've got to say, I'm on the fence with it.
Oh, really? Not into it?
I think we could be a bit riskier. I think we could be quite, I don't know, cutting edge when it comes to the third jersey. I've made a suggestion before, which I don't think the club will ever take on, whereby we have the blackout kit. So you can have different styles, but obviously everything's black on it. And we do it in conjunction with the former players so that all the sales go to the Former Players Association to help the widows and the families, those that have passed away, which is relevant this week again with the untimely passing of the big John Yogi Hughes, who we'll talk about during the show. We've not had a chance to talk about him yet, JP. But that was my big thing. I think it should always be blacked out. We don't need to wear the black armbands as a mark of respect. The day after or the game after one of the Celtic family or community passes away, we wear the black away kit in memory of that player. Every season the kit can change, but it's always black, and the monies goes to the widows and the families of those who have passed, via the former players. That's my big idea. I don't think the club would take it on. And then I'm thinking, well, look at the people, and this probably comes into the banners and the signage around the stadium as well, JP. Look at the people who support this club, who are creative, artistic. There's so many of them, both famous and not famous. I mean, one of the finest Scottish artists, Jim Lambie, who is a big pal, certainly in the early days with Bobby Gillespie, Primal Scream, done a lot of their flyers. The Poetry Club in Glasgow, there's a lot of his artwork down there, JP. And I was in a dance school, don't ask me why, I certainly wasn't dancing, and the floor was done by Jim Lambie, and it's just brilliant. It's almost like the stripes. And you think, why not just go to one of these designers and say, designers are top? And I just think there would be more interest. It just seems like off the rack, this silver and lime effort.
It looks like it's been made to, it looks like one of these ones. It's the colour of it looks like it would be glow in the dark. If it, do you know what I mean? It's like it's like that kind of material or that colour that looks like it would be reflective in the dark. I guess it's. What you're saying about getting collaborations, you see the likes of, I hate to mention them, but Manchester City did a collaboration with I think it was it wasn't a collaboration as such, but they used the inspiration of Factory Records and Hacienda for a top. There's plenty of things in Glasgow that Celtic could do to mix with a top, but as you see with people's comments on here about music or anything like that, if you start mixing music and football, then people get a bit irate. So maybe that wouldn't be a good idea if you were trying to sell it to the masses. But I don't know. I like the thing where it's, what is it, the geometric or the geographic outline of Celtic is in the sleeve. That you'd be tenuous. You'd be happy to figure that one out yourself if they hadn't told you.
It's a bit tenuous, eh? I mean, there's all the iconic images and visuals that you've got in Celtic's history, and we go with probably the ugliest part of the park. Oh, we'll stick that on the jersey. That'll work.
The black kit, if you remember the Germany kit from a few years ago that was kind of all black, that was really smart. So you could imagine that, because it was Adidas as well, so you could have the Adidas like replication of that. But a Celtic top, I think that would be smart. But it's just, I think all three tops are an improvement on last year's. I think that the white one last year wasn't the greatest. I didn't get it. It was the first time I've not got a Celtic top in quite some time. I really like the black one this year, the black away one. That's the replication of the 94. 94 one. I like that a lot, and does seem to be really popular. I've seen loads about Glasgow, loads of people wearing that. So that's obviously, if you take that as a sample size, it's obviously sold well. So that's the whole point, isn't it? To sell tops, because you didn't want to end up with boxes full of pink ones like a few seasons ago. I'm sure they're still buying it.
15,000 in the cellar. Apparently, the away one you're talking about, sorry lads and lassies, it's 10 minutes in, JP. This is football. We're talking about Celtic jerseys. Of course. Apparently, the away jersey is the best-selling jersey of modern times, and that has only been out for a number of weeks, and that's what I was getting told.
Wow.
I'm maybe giving away trade secrets here, but there you go.
It makes sense. Makes sense.
Oh, it's a belter. Paul Cockwell, welcome back, my friend. Haven't seen you on the comments for a while, although my site is pretty bad. So if you've been on there, apologies. And Paul Diet, thank you for bringing up this tracksuit, because it leads me on to my next section. Look at that. Look at that. Somebody actually gifted that to Acsom. That is a league winner's medal, JP. And I know that you get two now. You get one from the sponsors, which is obviously this one from Cinch, and you get probably the wee one from the league. But look at that. That's been gifted to us. That's an absolute cracker. And obviously it is on the mannequin, which houses the merchandise of A Celtic State of Mind, the Shamrock top. And if you want to buy that, there's a link underneath the video. There you go. There is the shameful link into selling some merchandise on the show. We've got loads and loads to talk about, JP. Absolutely loads to talk about. First up, how did you enjoy the game at the weekend on Sunday?
I really did enjoy it. It was strange sitting in a different seat. Obviously, after my season ticket debacle, not being able to actually secure my season ticket seat for Blackburn, Norwich, and Aberdeen, so I was moved over to the main stand. I was sitting next to a really lovely woman called Alexis. Had some chat with her, and she'd been sitting there for a number of years. So it was nice to meet her, and actually saw my mate Nodge, who is good pals with Arab Strap and Mogwai guys. He was sitting, I didn't realise where his season ticket seat was. He was sitting about, I don't know, maybe 20 rows back to the right of me. Really good seat he's got. And obviously great to see the Tifo as well. I got the best view I could have got of the Tifo because I was in, the main stand, and you saw the whole of Celtic Park. And sometimes you forget about the Celtic Football Club logo that's above the north stand, and because I'm underneath it, so I don't see it. So when you're on the other side and you see the full vista of Celtic Park, it was quite something. And the Tifo display was, I saw some criticism of it from the blue quarter, and I can only imagine they were doing it for clickbait or baiting people to try and jump on top of their comments, because how anybody could criticise that as a display, I have no idea. It was mint, absolutely mint. The shading on the trophy, on the Lisbon Lions stand, the ribbons coming down first.
Oh yeah.
The ribbons, was like, that's going to be a trophy there. That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. And then the Celtic crest in the middle, and the league flag 21-22 on the left. It was just stunning. And I really like the fact that I'm quite a eco-friendly type person, and I like the fact that they asked people to leave the foil or the plastic in their seat rather than take it away, because they were going to reuse it. So
right.
like that as well. So it ticked every box, and I'm sure Celtic will be delighted at the images that they'll have got from it, because some of the shots, I took a couple of one-handed rubbish shots while I'm holding the plastic, like taking a picture or whatever, squint camera and everything. But some of the professional shots that I've seen, like that guy Harji, you seen that guy Harji who takes photos at Celtic? Some of the pictures he's got, they're immediate canvas prints. They'll sell them by the bucket load.
Bedroom wall murals, JP. I've seen them getting done on the bedroom walls.
Might not be mine, but but I certainly think there'll be people who have many rooms in their house, and they'll have like a games room or something like that, and it would look nice, alongside a pool table if you're lucky to have one of those things. Or people have these. A lot of people have these kind of bar shed things in their garden.
There are loads of them now. Eh? Is that because people are just they're being kind of squeezed so much in relation to the cost of going out and the cost of alcohol that people have just thought, you know what, I'm going to sit in the back garden and just do it myself, get a few mates in because there's so many of them now. GP, I remember when if somebody had something like that in the back garden, it was quite unique. And I'm not slagging them off. I think great. Aye, get your mates in, get the tunes on, and have a few shandies and enjoy the game. But they are pretty prevalent now, aren't they?
Aye, but I think lockdown probably had a lot to do with that as well. They definitely would have sprung up a lot more in lockdown. My friend Michael in Livingston has got one, and it's he sent me pictures of it. I really want to go through and just have a few beers with him and play in his pool table because it looks. He's got signed strips in frames all round, like retro strips in frames. He's got, a beer pump. He's got every sort of spirits going, and it looks. I mean, it looks better than some pubs that you go into. Do you know what I mean? Like, and it's in his back garden. So, so the game itself, I'm sure it's been well covered, and it has been. But I thought we played well. I thought Aberdeen weren't as bad as they maybe were going to be expected to be. Obviously, it's still a new a new project for them with a lot of new players, much like it was for us at the start of last season. So I think probably better to assess Aberdeen after 3 or 4 months, much like it was better to assess us after 3 or 4 months last year. We got an early goal, which is always a good thing to settle the nerves a bit. If there was anybody nervous, I wasn't nervous. I didn't think that we were. I said on the show last week that if we turned up, we would win, and we did turn up. And then Jota with that goal, I mean, that was just a showstopper, and it was right in line with me because it was obviously into the Jock Stein, and I was at that side of the main stand, so it was right in front of me, and you could hear like a collective gasp as the shot went in because everybody was just like, wow, that was a special moment from, I think, a special player.
A very special player, yeah, definitely. A couple of things you've said there, actually. You're talking about the tifo, right? And we were just going on about sometimes a lack of creativity or original idea when it comes to maybe the third jersey, which I think is the one where if you're going to experiment, JP, that's the jersey to experiment on, right? And then you look at what the Green Brigade and everybody involved in that tifo have achieved with that installation, which, as you say, will be photographed and used and be on DVD compilations and video footage for years and years to come. It'll end up on people's walls, which got us onto the subject of man caves. And by the way, let's be honest, the studio is just a big, massive man cave. Everybody comes in here.
I have been through a few times now, and it gets more and more man cave the more you get to it. But I mean, that it's like a cross between a man cave and a museum, and that's right up my street.
Oh, and there's, as I say, kind people give us things as well, which is tremendous. The other thing I was going to say, in the main stand, did you quite enjoy the view? Because it's a different angle from anywhere else in the stadium, JP. It's not as steep, is it? And you feel that a wee bit closer to the park for some strange reason when you're in the main stand.
You do, and also when you go in as well, it's as Celtic Park was, isn't it? It's unchanged, like nothing about that. So it feels a lot smaller, and just everything, like corridor, like the stairways are a lot tighter, and I don't know, if ceiling feels a bit lower when you're inside, and actually just brought back memories of some early games that I went to in the very early 90s with my pal Greenie and his big sister, and I remember we were in that stand for quite a lot of the games. I don't think there was season tickets. I think it was we just got tickets through the Bathgate Shamrock, I think, as it was. Maybe still is. And we used to sit in there, and I remember being at Stuart Slater's debut on a Wednesday night and being in the main stand, and really, really close to the pitch. Kind of feels a bit more kind of, I don't know, like Tynecastle or something like that. It's just it's old school. It's a completely different experience than my normal seat anyway. And then I find out from Sean that sits behind me that nobody was even in my seat. So Celtic had said that they'd sold my seat on, and yet it lay empty for the game. Now, obviously, it could have just been chance that somebody bought the ticket and then didn't go, or did go and sat with their mate or something like that. But yeah, it seemed a bit strange, and I felt a bit sad that my seat was sitting empty for such a big game, you know.
I know, absolutely. And we have spoken a wee bit about kind of fashion and kit design already. So let's move on to the football itself. You've mentioned a couple of the performances, or at least Jota, who you were impressed by. What I was also impressed by, JP, was the strength of the bench. And I think if you compare where we are just now, because we're talking about how Ange Postecoglou has galvanised the entire football club. That was a conversation that I had on Tuesday as well when I was up at the park. How one man can have such an impression on every area of the football club. You know, so yeah, he's managing the football side of things, but you know, what was explained to me is somebody who is on the kind of like outskirts of that side of things, doing a different job within the club, is still impacted with this positivity and this momentum that has been implemented by Ange Postecoglou. And you know, that cannot be underestimated, because we've been speaking for long enough about the implementation of a culture at Celtic and how the culture wasn't good enough, you know, maybe in the final season under Neil Lennon, and he's managed to do that in a very, very short space of time. But he's also not just managed to get the team on the park better, but the squad, and I think you saw that with the strength of the bench. Yeah, it was 1-0, and I think maybe he mentioned it himself, 10 minutes to go before half-time, Aberdeen start coming into it. But I'm looking at the bench at that point, JP, and thinking, even if they did come into it, even if Johnny Hayes did score that chance, I think we've got enough on that bench to change the game, put it up a couple of gears. I mean, how important is that going to be this season?
Yeah, well, massively. I think that I was texting my pal James about this, who's a big Aberdeen fan, and he said that the three subs that we brought on are worth more than the entire Aberdeen squad, probably. So that shows you the kind of disparity. A lot of people go on about the disparity between Celtic and, you know, and Rangers and the rest of the league. I mean, well, certainly with regards to us, it is self-sustained, i.e. we don't spend what we can't afford on players. We didn't go out and, you know, spend 20 million on players or anything like that, because that's just not within our financial budget or model. But, you know, having the 5 subs is a massive advantage, particularly now that we've actually got a really good squad, where you're looking around and going, right, there is probably a couple of guys for every position. So then you can replace that quality, and you know, you're bringing on sort of Turnbull and Giacomakis as you know, to affect the game at a point where, you know, Aberdeen, I wouldn't say Aberdeen were tired, but it just gives them a different obstacle to come up against. And, you know, Giacomakis on another day gets a goal probably. You know, I think there's no doubt about it. He should have scored, but that'll come. It's early on in the season. You know, there's plenty of competition there, and you know, sometimes you wonder how he's going to keep all these people happy, because people, you know, you hear the James McCarthy patter, you know, whether or not that's come from him or if it's just paper talk or what, but you would imagine that James McCarthy is probably thinking, how am I going to get into this team? You know, the midfield is so strong, and you know, they've all got, I think, another level to get to, which is the scary thing as well. You know, I don't think we've seen the best of Hatate yet. You know, and I don't think we've seen the best of O'Reilly yet, and everyone's raving about the two of them, and I think they've got another level within them. You know, and when they get their confidence up even more so, you know, O'Reilly gets a couple more goals in his under his belt or whatever, you know, that can really fire somebody on. And then, as the strapline says, we've got Europe to come as well, so that could boost their confidence even further. Obviously, I'm very aware that, you know, we're entering into territory where we're going to be going up against far, far superior teams to us. But we've done that before and we've got results, so there's no reason to say that we couldn't do that again.
No, and by the way, by bringing up the European aspirations on the strapline there, JP, I'm not taking my eye off the domestic game. Absolutely not. I mean, I think Ross County is going to be a tough game on Saturday. And going into the Aberdeen game, I knew that they were going to be in better shape, I'm going to say, than last season under Stephen Glass anyway, because I think that Jimmy Goodwin is one of these managers who'll come in and get organised, get the team organised, and they'll play to a system. And they lost a couple of very, very important players in the summer, and I didn't think they would have enough to beat us, but I knew it wasn't going to be a pushover, and the Johnny Hayes moment proved that. It could have gone. But as I say, I still think we had enough on the bench. Now, the Urban culture this year is about consolidation. Next year we have a goal. We'd be happy with 1 win and 2 draws. And I think that, you do set yourself up a wee bit when you start talking about Europe. And I said last week when I was talking about it that one thing about Ange is that he's a very, very quick learner. That's one thing we've got to take from him coming in. Did he make a few errors in the first few months? Probably admit himself that he did, but there was a few bad results. And then when we go into Europe, there's a few bad performances, but often what he was doing was actually sorting them by the time we played the team again. And the example I used was Bayer Leverkusen. If you compare the 2 games, home and away, within 2 months of each other, he learns and then he implements it. And I think, like the Urban culture says, in Europe this season, if we don't progress in the Champions League anyway, but we see enough in terms of improvement of performance, JP, because again, we're going to be up against some top quality sides then. I think then we look ahead to next season, and we won't have too much disappointment. It's always disappointing if we get beat from anyone. I mean, you're going to ask me about a friendly, and I'm still not got the answer for you, by the way. But even in friendly games, when we're looking at them, you want to win. You never ever want to lose a game. JR, he's Angeized the club, and the club is better for it. I know exactly what you mean. He's implemented his own culture, isn't he? And then here we go, Kevin Graham. No surprise that he's met Declan. Going back to the chap you were talking about earlier. And I don't know if Declan's got one of the murals of Celtic Park in his bedroom, but you never know. He could well have a mural in there, I'll ask him. John Bossas is in a very hot France watching the show. Brilliant. If it's up on the big screen, apologies if I'm pixelating a wee bit. Some folk might...
I've heard of Carcassonne. I don't know whereabout in France it is, but I've definitely heard of it.
Let us know, Paul. Let us know, John. Sorry.
I'm so jealous. Imagine sunning yourself in France right now. That's the dream,
mate. In about an hour's time, I'm going to be in Dalkeith High Street. I mean, it's all levels. It's just levels, right? The Urban culture comes in, and if there is a cause and that we believe in, then we will certainly use the platform to highlight it. And what you're talking about there, the Urban culture, is Noah Donoghue. If you've been following the story and the cover-up of the disappearance and ultimate death of young Noah, have a look at it if you haven't. There's some tremendous videos on YouTube as well. Read as much as you possibly can. There's now a petition in relation to revealing all available information, because obviously it was never a suicide, which they've tried to write it off as. And they need to give a bit of justice to the family who will not give up. So yeah, read up on it, watch the videos, and if there's anything we can do to obviously highlight it, we certainly will as well. Now, one performance that was very interesting, I know that players like Jota are going to get plaudits, JP, but I'm going to bring up Stephen Welsh, the scorer of the opening goal. A couple of things. I said the other day there, or I asked the question when I was speaking to Amy on Monday, is this his Tony Ralston season? And Amy quite rightly pointed out that he was far more in the mix than what Tony Ralston was when he came in to the side this time last year. But I think what I meant was a player who's come through the ranks who really does establish himself as that first team player. Is he going to be that? And also, when you look at that performance at the weekend, the fact that he seems to be the second choice for Ange over Chris Julian, over even Maurice Gents who's come in, is it the end for Chris Julian? Does this spell the end for Chris Julian, the fact that Welsh is the first pick, and of course we've brought in another defender?
Yeah, probably. I mean, the end for Christopher Julian, not necessarily a kind of like doom and gloom end, but like the end was the fact that he was being allowed to leave, go to Schalke, incidentally, where Jordan Larsson's apparently going to be signing today, according to Fabrizio Romano, anyway. So yeah, I mean, like that whole episode, as soon as you know a player's been allowed to leave, you kind of know that their card's marked. And there was a lot of clamour, a lot of people saying that Maurice Jens should just come in on Sunday and start alongside Carter Vickers after a 15-20 minute cameo against Norwich, just because he came on and looked all right. I just think that's, I really don't get this sort of, not disrespect towards Welsh, but it's why would you just cast that guy to the side and put in a guy that's barely earned his stripes, so to speak. He hasn't earned his stripes. Welsh has been kind of in the trenches, and Ange Postecoglou obviously trusts him, didn't want to sell him to Toulouse or Udinese. Has rebuffed offers that have come in for him, so he's clearly part of the plans. And then, to score that goal, we don't expect centre halves to score goals or anything like that. That's not really their job. But what a boost for him to score that goal and really make him feel part of the first team. And when you contribute a goal like that on such a big day, it's remembered as well, and hopefully that's maybe change people's minds. There's still a lot of people that you see going, I saw a comment, a reply back to when in Toulouse were linked with him again recently, and a guy replied and went, I'll drive him to France myself or something like that. And you're like, where does that come from? Where does that snide and nastiness come from? You're a Celtic fan and you're publicly talking about a player, a young boy. You're publicly talking about him like that, So I hope that goal on Sunday has changed maybe a few people's minds. Do I think Stephen Welsh is a long-term Celtic great? I don't know, but I'm prepared at this moment in time to give him the chance to become one, rather than just go, nah, not good enough. Because people said that about Callum McGregor. Loads of folk were quite happy, would have been quite happy for McGregor to exit stage left and leave Celtic, and who knows how his career would have gone elsewhere without the support of the fans and the club. Might not have gone as well as it has done. I think you just need to give people a chance, and Stephen Welsh has certainly deserved that. Deserved the right to be given a chance,
I think so. And you look at some of the other homegrown players in the squad, JP, that are making up that first 15, 16 players. You've got Jamesy Forrest, who I think he came in a bit of a blaze of glory as a 17-year-old, and then has since had stick. I think Callum McGregor, when he came in under Ronnie Deila, he was 21 years of age, and people were maybe looking at that and thinking, why is he not broke through before now? And I do remember him getting a bit of stick, and his form dipped a fair bit. He was a different player back then. Ralston, the stick he got. Mikey Johnson, massive amounts, and Welsh seems to get a bit. So I don't know if it's because they're unfashionable or it's that familiarity thing because they've been at the club and they've come through the ranks, and there's a bit of contempt here. I don't know, but I think based on the performances, he's got the jersey at this moment in time. At some point in this season, Starfelt will be back in. Gents will get games. But I do think that it spells the end for Julian, and there's a few others that I'm sure will come into the conversation as well. Frank Kennedy doesn't think that Ange will achieve anything in the Champions League, as we have the same players as last season. We haven't strengthened for the Champions League. And I think that if you were to look at certainly the early European performances last year, we weren't in a fit state. Ange had come in, but you look at the Michelin games and the way that you had to put the team together and play Beaton at centre half, and by the time we're going away from home, we're playing Dane Murray at 18 years of age playing at centre half. And by the way, we still took them through extra time and almost scraped through. The tie probably didn't deserve to. The red card in the first game, Barkasi's mistake, the whole thing, everybody remembers it. But I think we are better equipped this time round, even though the personnel hasn't changed a great deal. You look at the starting lineup against Aberdeen, JP, if you take out the two loanees who became permanent signings, no new players. However, a far better structured side than we were this time last season. Do you agree with Frank?
No. Sorry, Frank, I don't. I think we have strengthened. I think time has strengthened the team rather than signings. Would we have been able to go to Ibrox back in September last year and come away with a 2-1 win? Probably not. They beat us 1-0 in September. So, we obviously gave a reasonable account of ourselves in that game, and it could have gone either way, but ultimately they won the 3 points. We did go there with a stronger team, in in April. Was it April? Aye, and beat them at Ibrox then, and we also absolutely thumped them 3-0 at Celtic Park in February because the team was stronger. So the argument that we've not gone out and spent millions to, supposedly strengthen the team doesn't really wash for me. It's the same argument you get from people saying, "Oh well, you just signed Jota and Carter Vickers and you've stood still because you've just retained the same players that you did last year." I mean, in what world is that not strengthening a side by keeping players to allow them to develop and get better? So we went into that European campaign last year. I mean, I still found it thrilling that we went to Germany and took the lead, and we were given a really good go at them, having a really good go at them at a point where we were not in any way a steady side. No one really knew how good a lot of those players were going to become over the course of the year. So we were punching above our weight at that point massively. We still will be punching above our weight if we do anything in the Champions League. And I'm not saying that we're going to do anything, but I think we're a stronger team now to take on those challenges. And just back to Welsh, he couldn't have a better player to play beside than Carter Vickers, because I thought he was absolutely immense on Sunday. Not that he had to be, because he didn't really face a stiff test, but you saw the confidence and the strength of that guy, that he's willing to mix it with the best, and will mix it with the best. His last ditch tackle I think, was it on Hayes again? Towards the end of the game, there was a last ditch tackle anyway.
I remember it because he actually had a word with Welsh afterwards, because Welsh was slightly out of position. Yep.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's now, you now see him as a Celtic player, because he's no longer a lone player, and he's got that kind of assured. He kind of looks, beyond his years. Carter Vickers. He doesn't strike me as being a young guy. I mean, what is he? 23, 24?
Carter Vickers. I'll check that actually, because I think sometimes it's deceptive where it comes to a player like Carter Vickers. You think he's that wee bit older, don't you? Because he's come in and played with such a cool head. But I'll check that, because if that is the case, then he's not far off the age of Stephen Welsh, who's 22. Carter Vickers is 24.
Right.
So there's not a massive gap between the two players. Yet you look upon Carter Vickers as being almost the old head between the two, don't you?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and just going back to Europe. I mean, it's just really exciting that we're there, and we don't have these banana skin qualifiers to negotiate. We've been mercilessly slagged over the last however many years, or how many times have you made the Champions League? Look at you getting beat off this mob and that mob, and I know it's not Champions League, but getting slagged for the Bodo Glimt games last season and everything else. Like, oh, you never heard of them? That's a character from Lord of the Rings or that. We've seen this week how difficult Champions League qualifiers are, and that's potentially 2 for 2 Champions League qualifiers that Rangers have not been able to negotiate. Malmo last year and Union Saint-Gallois this year. So, yeah, it's difficult to get into the Champions League. Who'd have thought that trying to get to a competition where you can earn millions of pounds would be difficult? We've just not been at it, and never been in the right state to get there in previous years, and we've always been in a bit of flux and disarray with personnel when it's come to those qualifiers, and they come so early in the season that you're maybe not ready for games as big as that at this point in the season. Obviously the Belgians were, but we've seen that film many times, so it seems almost ridiculous that we should be ridiculed by them for something that is now fallen into their world as well. And it's not nice, is it? It's not nice getting beaten Champions League qualifiers when we've all been there, Maribor and God, Malmo. There's been a litany of teams have done it to us.
A litany of failures, and you think of some of them, like last season, you think of the Midtjylland one and you go, well, you probably wouldn't expect, under all the circumstances taken into account, you wouldn't have expected Ange to wave the magic wand and get us through that, and he didn't. It was just too soon for him, right? But we're in such a better place now with regards to the structure being in place, the personnel's in place, the players know each other, the galvanisation of last season's success. Think back to even AEK Athens when Boyata refuses to play.
Oh.
And the upheaval of that, and you're looking at the squad thinking we could have done something, but it's unsettled when a player's, attitude is such that he doesn't even want to play. We're in a position now where I think, the personnel hasn't changed dramatically since the end of last season, certainly, but it has since the beginning of the last season, and I think we're in a much better, it's going to be hard anyway, JP, but we're in a much better position than we were last year. Robert saw JP at a gig and called him PJ by accident. Sorry, man. It happens though, JP. It happens more often than you could possibly imagine, and I don't mind it, to be fair. I don't mind getting called JP because we have, as I've said before, been called a lot worse. Keith Oakden, talking about the Pars, a bloke at the work who's an Argyle fan told me that story a few years ago about the Pars, so I reckon there's some truth in it. So the story goes that obviously you've got Rosyth Royal Dockyard, you've got Plymouth, which is I've never been to Plymouth, so apologies, Keith. But you've got Plymouth, which has a dockyard, and obviously there are people who have made the transition from Plymouth to Rosyth over the years, either just to work or even just, they come up here, they meet a lady and they stay. So there's a lot of accents within the Rosyth area as a result of that. And a group of Plymouth Argyle fans went to watch the Pars and they wrote on a big banner, PARS, Plymouth Argyle Rosyth supporters. It was all through the dockyard. And we reckon that's where they got the nickname. Pars fans tell me it's a lot of nonsense and that it's just because they've got parallel stripes on their jersey. I prefer the Plymouth Argyle story. It's a wee bit more of a romantic story, JP. What did you make of Ange's comments after the game? He wasn't happy with the overall performance, was he?
I think it was probably fair. I mean, I don't think we reached the heights that he probably has aspirations to get to, and definitely I think we could have been a bit more clinical, in which case he's got every right to sort of criticise. And he is the manager after all, so he can say those things. Fans and whatnot seem to get taken down a peg or two if they say something against the team or whatever. But he was honest in his appraisal of the game, and Jota obviously scored the goal, but maybe was a bit wasteful with other chances. I do remember him trying an overhead kick from about 20 yards or so, which obviously would have been tremendous if he'd connected with it properly. But there was a Giacomakis chance, and there's probably a number of others that I'm forgetting. I haven't watched the game back or even seen the highlights. I'm just going by memory. But it keeps them on their toes and lets them know that the standards expected of them are such that we've made the we don't stop mantra quite a prominent theme throughout the club. So you've got to practice what you preach. You can't really sort of take the foot off the gas, regardless if you've got a goal early on or whatever. It's all about pushing ahead and gaining every single inch that we can an early part in the season to really buy us points, because everything will matter. I mean, Rangers go down 1-0 at Livingston and come back and get the win, whether it was a pretty win or not. They still got the 3 points, and I've got a feeling it's going to be quite tight, regardless of what happened with them the other night in Europe. I don't really think that impacts on the league. I think they've got a decent enough squad that will be able to take care of most teams in the league. It's going to be tight. I'm sure it will be. So we need to be making sure we are at it in every single game.
Well, it's a good point, that, JP, because if you look at last season and somebody says, what is the gap? Well, you can look at the February game, 3-0 at Celtic Park, where, on that particular evening, the gap looked massive. It looked extremely wide, and it looked as though Celtic were far superior. But over the season, the gap's 4 points. That is as simple as that. So I'm not coming into this season thinking we're miles ahead of our main challengers.
He is in the Scottish Cup. Drew is at Celtic Park. Take those games in isolation. They're closer to us than maybe we would have liked.
The big thing this pre-season, I guess, is that they've lost a couple of important players. We haven't. And I think that's vital. It's vital because of our own aspirations, and I keep banging on about it. The Champions League music hasn't been heard at Celtic Park for 5 years. But in those 5 years, we've always sold an asset, at least one, sometimes more. Last season it was 3. So I think that that's key. But it is going to be a challenge. And you're right, most of these games, they are going to grind out results. They are going to beat most of the other teams in the league throughout the season as well. Gary Oliver, the third kit is excellent, says Gary. However, Mike O'Reilly reckons that it just looks like a jersey turned inside out.
I get that.
I do as well, particularly with the badge, because the badge looks as though it's the inverse or the reverse of the stitching. But that seems to be a thing nowadays. I'm old-fashioned in that I think the badge should be full colour at all times, or you could just whack on a massive big shamrock like that. Good afternoon, Acsom, says Monty, and a good afternoon to you as well. These things are always going to divide opinion, aren't they? They are always going to divide opinion. The Japanese kit should be our third one. I'm pretty sure that the marketing people would think that's a good idea as well. I'm sure that would sell well. There's loads to discuss before we get into the teaser that you've got, and I'm still thinking about it, JP, because you asked me before we came on live. What's your thoughts about the chairman stepping down, Peter Lawwell coming in? We used a wee analogy, a Kevin Grahamism during the week, whereby it's not quite Dirty Den going back to Albert Square. If it was a return, a soap opera return, is it more Bobby Ewing turning up in the shower on Dallas, or is it a bit of the Dirty Den coming back to haunt Albert Square? Where are you with Peter Lawwell coming back to the club?
I think it's more, and I'll give you a really niche one, it's more Harold Bishop coming back from the dead after falling off the cliff. Remember
JP, I'd forgotten about that.
He ended up
wow.
It's 100% Harold Bishop.
Wee Penfold came back for the dead.
Yeah,
wow.
He fell off a cliff or something like that, but then he was picked up at sea and ended up working for the Samaritans or something.
This is genius. You have brought it back to Australia. You brought it back to Ange. That was a genius segue, by the way, GP.
Well, you just put me on the spot, and that I did watch the last episode of Neighbours on Friday.
End of an era, mate.
Extremely emotional, and I was actually texting. I met your brother on Sunday, Jamie. I was texting Brendan's brother, Jamie Smith.
Oh yeah, yep.
He's a massive Neighbours fan, like an obsessive. Do you know he actually bought? This is mad. Brendan told me this. He bought one of those. Remember the very early pocket televisions you could get that were kind of like the same size as a Game Boy.
This does not surprise me.
He bought one of them so that he could watch Neighbours in his car while he was driving home, because he'd be in like slow moving traffic, and he had Neighbours on his pocket television.
So you're telling me that Jamie Smith was before his time, wasn't he? Because I do that now. I stick on an interview on YouTube, and when I'm stuck in traffic on a bypass.
He was. So I was texting him about Neighbours. But anyway, back to Peter Lawwell. Do you know what? I can't get angry about it. I'm not saying that I'm necessarily doing backflips about it, but I'm impartial to it. That's not the word. Nonplussed is the word. If he's been in around the scenario or been in around the background, as people often think in the last year, that people are like, oh, Peter Lawwell's never going away. Mm-hmm. Well, if Peter Lawwell has been involved in any way in the last year, are we not happy about that because we're successful and we've won the league and we've been, Postecoglou is happy in his job, and, if Peter Lawwell had a hand in Postecoglou coming here, are we unhappy about that? You can't be happy about Postecoglou being here and unhappy about Peter Lawwell potentially coming back. I don't know. It's a strange one where you've got that scenario where everybody's happy and content with the team and the manager, and yet believe that Peter Lawwell has had an influence and has never gone away. And then when you hear he's coming back in a different capacity, not everybody, but people can get up in arms about it. I don't know. What's your take on it?
Well, I get what you're saying. There's somewhere in the recesses of my mind a concern that he's going to come in and, he's going to ruin this relationship that we've got with Ange, because we've seen it before. And I don't think it was one-sided with Brendan Rodgers, to be fair. I think history tells us that it was the clash of the Titanic egos, and there's only going to be one winner. And you hope that, as I say, it's buried somewhere in the back of my mind that is a possibility, and that's the fear. But again, when it comes to the chairman, how much involvement should that individual have in footballing matters? And by footballing matters, I mean signing players. That's the big worry. Leave Ange at it, because he's doing a good job the way that he's going about his business, and then it becomes less of an issue. And at the same time, I wanted rid of Bankier. I wanted rid of Ian Bankier as the chairman. I think he was an empty blazer, and yeah, some of the things he was coming out with regards, let's talk about Europe, because it's on the tagline there, whereby he says we can't compete in Europe. I thought it was a disgraceful comment from any Celtic chairman. You go back to Robert Kelly, who was a chairman when we won the European Cup, and what he seen from the 60s right through to the 70s, and the progress of the club in Europe as a European force, and you compare that to this withering excuse of a comment in relation to the fact that we just can't compete in Europe. Well, sorry, you're in the wrong job, mate. If you think that, you're in the wrong position. Move aside, bring someone in who's stronger, who's got more ambition. Is Peter Lawwell that man? Who knows? But I'm sure that this will all pan out over the next weeks and months.
The one comment that Bankier made that has stuck in my mind, there's probably many that people would pick up on, people that have studied it more forensically than me, but that comment when that guy made one of the fan things, or it was an AGM, when he said, "Oh, I've got X amount of season tickets, and we've renewed," and he said, "Oh, that's what we like to hear." That really didn't sit well with me, especially
just geese your money. Basically, was his response. He just like, as long as you're giving me your money, I'm not interested in you, and because you're right. It was a disgraceful comment, and there's been others as well. The one about Scott Brown. Maybe we should bring him back. What? It was incredible. So far removed, so out of touch. Change is required. Who knows? Every change is going to be a risk. This is random, but maybe it's part of the comments. I'm going to bring it up anyway because I agree. Yeah, OK Computer is fantastic. Well, thank you very much for that. All 3 albums. By the way, I've not explored anything after album number 3.
What?
So I haven't.
Come on.
I have not.
Live in the now, man. Live in the now. Everything Radiohead have done is brilliant. King of Limbs, maybe not so much, but everything else is unreal, I think, in my humble opinion. I actually saw. Have you heard of a band called October Drift?
No.
Good band.
Is this another recommendation?
Yeah, good band. Kieran from October Drift put up a video of him covering No Surprises, I think, and he just said Radiohead best band of all time, or best band in the world, or something like that. And on certain days of the week, I would agree with him on that.
On certain days of the week, yeah.
Also, music-wise, another recommendation. After the game on Sunday, I went out for dinner with my pals to Koya's, tremendous, on Duke Street. It's been there since like 1936 or something like that. It's like a proper old school Glasgow establishment. It's brilliant.
They must be related to Paul Coyer. Remember the TV presenter?
Aye, yeah.
Must be.
Surely, aye. But I went there and then went to Brazen Head and had a few shandies at the Brazen Head. And I met another fan of a Celtic state of mind in there. So hello to Martin, who accosted me outside the toilets rather than inside the toilets. But he was respectful enough to allow me that few minutes. And then we went to see a band at King Tut's. Wasn't working it. Rare that I go to King Tut's when I'm not working, but I went to see Brogale, and very good they are too. So I would recommend. They're from Falkirk.
All right.
And very kind of Pogues influenced. There's a lot going on, on stage. Only played a handful of gigs, I think. I saw them supporting Danko, who are also a good band from Falkirk, at Tuts last year, and kind of had the feeling that they would come back and headline, and they came back headlining Sunday night and very nearly sold it out. It sold I think it was 230 tickets or something like that. So not bad going for a fairly new band. And the sales jumped from Friday to Sunday by 100 or something like that. So, yeah, really, really good band.
I'm going to get them in for a session. Get some Falkirk talent.
I think they'd be up for it, given the fact that at the end of the set, the singer shouted into the mic, "The game is over, the Rebels have won."
They're definitely coming in for a session.
Aye, yeah.
Lanky 67, didn't get time to get round to this one, but I read that story when I got up this morning. Tommy Rogic
broke the news. Colin Romano broke the news last night. That's how I found out about this.
Was it Colin Romano? Dearie me. What a man. What a man. If he's not writing for Force 42 and being on Acsom, he's breaking transfer stories. Strange move, because I never ever thought he performed at his best under Neil Lennon, but there you go. Maybe it's a lifestyle choice. I don't know.
Surely. I mean, Cyprus wouldn't be a bad place to live. And as I was saying to Colin last night when we were talking about it, I said, he's made his money. Maybe he just wants to live somewhere nice. And I mean, Cyprus is definitely a nice place to live. I mean, I've not been, but I from what I've heard and what I've seen, it's it's a pretty, in terms of the climate and everything else. Maybe the football level isn't going to be, top notch. But as I said to Colin as well, because Colin said, "Oh, what of his international career? Would that affect, him playing for the national team?" And then I just thought, well, Aaron Moy's been getting called up to Australia and he's been playing in China. So I wouldn't have thought. I mean, Tom Rogic should go over there and boss that league, I would have thought, which again might be a reason why I'd want to go, when it's a place where he can go and kind of show off a bit. I don't know.
I know. I just look at him at 29, JP, and I just think, he could have another 4 years at a very high level playing Champions League football, for example. But if that's what he chooses to do, and
it wasn't exactly a huge queue for him last. Remember, he was being linked with Qatar and Jakarta and all these kind of, there was never any, Premiership sort of links or anything like that. So I don't know. Maybe he's been deemed not good enough to play at that level. I don't know.
I know. It's an interesting one, and he'll be meeting Adam Matthews as well, ex-Celtic player who has signed for Ammonia Nicosia with Neil Lennon. Before we wrap up, you gave me a teaser an hour ago, before we actually came on live, about a game that actually happened on this day several years ago. JP, share it with the rest of the commenters to see if anybody can get it, because I'm racking my brains and I just cannot think of the answer to this question. So I
do love an on this day. I don't know. Maybe it keeps your memory ticking over, and if you're constantly sort of referring back, then it allows your mind not to get clouded. But the first one, the closest one to today, was 4th of August 2001. Kilmarnock 0, Celtic 1. John Hartson's debut at Rugby Park. And Larsson scored the winner in that game, so that was on this day. But we played a team in a friendly on the 4th of August 1998. It was one each. Jackie McNamara scored, and it was against English opposition. And
it was a testimonial for a player who played for Rangers.
Correct.
Right. Now, I'm not going to check the Celtic Wiki. The Celtic Wiki is my go-to. Obviously, back in the day, doing a lot of writing, you always double-check your information on the Celtic Wiki. It is an absolute Bible. But I'm not going to do that, because I'm thinking to myself, you need to get the old grey matter, working from time to time, JP.
I'll tell you the team. Stuart Kerr in goals, Malky Mackay and Alan Stubbs, Tom Boyd, Jackie McNamara, Craig Burley, David Hanna, Darren Jackson, Tosh McKinley, Henrik Larsson, and your friend and mine, Simon Donnelly.
We said.
Correct.
Mark Pearson, Bolton. Now I need to figure out who the Rangers player is. Now I need to figure out who the Rangers... Who is it?
Well, I tell you. It's Jimmy Phillips.
Right. And we went for a testimonial.
Now, bear in mind, I think at that time I was probably blissfully unaware that this guy played for Rangers. I had no memory of him playing for Rangers. I didn't at any point think I'm not going to this game. Neither did the 4,499 other people. So was I. I was there with my dad. My dad took me, and weirdly, I think that was my first proper taste of Celtic away out of the country, as in I'd never seen Celtic away in another country at that point. And my dad took me to my first game in '88, and then 10 years later, I was there oft. And then 10 years later, my dad was from Bradford, so I think what we did at that time was we probably went to see my aunt in Bradford, and then doubled it up with going to the Bolton game. So it's the only time I've ever been to the Reebok Stadium. Jackie McNamara scored a equaliser with about 3 or 4 minutes to go. I can only vaguely remember it from my memory that it was a good, 20 yards out or something like that. It was a really good goal. And yeah, just the atmosphere of being in amongst the Celtic support. Like I said, there was 4,500 Celtic fans there for a testimonial. And the atmosphere was amazing because we were the champions for the first time in 10 years. So you just had that kind of, exuberance of being the champions and being in England and, being on the road. And I think that definitely, I have to thank my dad for that, because I think that definitely whetted my appetite for future years. And I've always enjoyed being away with Celtic ever since that night.
You've got the bug. You definitely got the bug. I'm keeping this Kevin Graham comment up because Kevin is one of these guys who is absolutely delighted that back then smartphones weren't really that prevalent, because I think Kevin's footballing exploits are slightly different from what they are now. He's a very sensible podcasting poet these days, but back in the day, I think he was a wee bit wilder, JP. So yeah, oft, I'm sure, Kevin Graham. Kevin is going to be performing live at one of our events a week on Friday. It's in Dunfermline at PJ Malloy's, and it's going to be the single launch of a band called Twinstown. If you have not checked them out, have a look on our YouTube. We have just recorded their official music video, JP, so we're moving in completely different directions, and we're now recording music videos. So check it out. We're going to premiere that very soon, and Kevin will be opening up the evening. The headliners are a band from Nottingham called The Chase, who are big Celtic fans, and they definitely are. It's not one of these things where they're just trying to, gravitate towards Celtic. They're massive Celtic fans. They were up here. Their dad's family's Scottish, I believe. There's a massive CSC down in Nottingham. And when I was interviewing the lead singer, he's sitting there with his Celtic tracksuit on. And he dedicated one of the songs that he played to Ange Postecoglou. So yeah, come along to PJ Malloy's. It's a tenner. There's also the usual fares playing from Edinburgh. Great night to be had by all. So thanks everybody for your support. If you want to buy that top behind me, or a green one, which I think you've got, JP, or a yellow one, then get onto Acsom.net. We don't charge for content, but if you want to buy some merch, that certainly helps us out a wee bit as well. JP, it's been absolutely tremendous as always. We only covered 3 or 4 subjects, but such is the way when you and I
the majority of it was Celtic, to be fair.
Was.
I don't think anybody... a couple of minutes on music? I mean, geez,
you've got to give us that. You've got to give us that. Yeah, I mean, where else do you get recommendations like JP's recommendations on a weekly basis? But thanks everybody for getting involved. If there's anything else that we haven't covered, then get in touch on the socials or via email. It's always a pleasure. And thank you, JP Mason, for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind.